Welcome to Pure Hustle Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're here on episode 388, 12 away from 400. And this is an update episode.
Yeah, that's right. And we love doing these update episodes because the update episodes are where we get a chance to talk about like what's going on in our life with reselling, what's going on in the world in general with reselling, and then to give some sweet, spicy, juicy, delicious, scrumptious, satiating bolos, right? Let me throw all those words in there. And yeah, so make sure you stick around, listen to the whole podcast because we have nuggets throughout. And I've noticed a lot of people like they think that they just want like the bolos, you know, like a lot of people get into reselling and it's like they just want like tell me what to buy. But then when they start listening to content like this, they find that most of the gold isn't in like go to the thrift store and try and find this one item. But most of the benefit comes from just the interactions that we have with, you know, me and you. And then also, especially when we do our lives. So if you haven't subscribed to YouTube and hit the bell notification, make sure you do that because every Monday we go live, or at least we have been. And it's great to have all of our listeners who jump on and interact with us because that's where the real meat is. That's where the real the best information comes from is when we all kind of collaborate together. So make sure you hit that subscribe, come on over to YouTube. You won't regret it.
Yeah. So let's start with the with the updates as we always do. I guess I'll start with the first, you know, I don't know. It's kind of hard. This is the thing that I struggle with the podcast is that we're about documenting, right? So we got to keep it real. And I hate it whenever I talk about how things are, and if they're not, well, we get all these comments like, you guys are so negative, you guys are so bad, but it's just, that's the way it is. And I got to tell you right now, I am not very confident on eBay. I'm just not. We'll talk about the Q4 earnings, which maybe that'll bring some, positive leanings. But for me, eBay has not been reliable lately. Whether I'm listing every day, whether I'm shipping on time, whether I'm providing great customer service, like it's just not happening for me lately. I'll have like the other day, I sold two pieces of art for close to 500 and a few other items. I had like $1,000 day, and it was great.
Uh-huh.
And then the next day I made $70, and the next day I made like $80. I'm like, what is this? Is it eBay equally redistributing like how much money I make because I made too much on one day, and so we can't have that over several days? I'm not saying that's what eBay's doing, but that's what it feels like. I'm just like, what is going on? Like earlier in February, I had a week that was just a killer week, and then the next week it was dead. And I'm like, why can't this consistency continue? Like, why does the momentum die? And you know, to be real, I've actually made more money in crypto in the last week then I have reselling, and that's kind of what's moving me along. And that I'm just keeping real. That's just the way it is. And you know, I don't know how long this crypto bull run will be, but for now, it's what may keep me staying a full-time reseller. And if you didn't catch our live when we talk about, you know, we should respect individuals that go to part-time reselling from full-time because it takes a lot to do that. And I'm not there yet. I don't plan on being there anytime soon. I had mentioned before on previous podcasts, I'm not giving up. It's going to take a lot for me to go, all right, I'm done. I'm hanging in the towel. I'm going to go to part-time. But I got to tell you, I'm a little discouraged. I'm a little burnt out. And I will say part of the burnt out has been being unable to source garage sales, being able to get out there, find stuff, because it's just been raining. It's like I live in Seattle or something. I don't know what's going on, but every weekend I want to go to garage sales. There's rain, or there's rain the day before, and people, you know, in San Diego, it's like, man, there's a little bit of rain. It's a little bit cold. They just don't have garage sales. And usually by this time, there's been at least 2 or 3 community garage sales, and there've been none. We're in March. This is supposed to be garage sale season over here right now, and it just isn't happening. So that's been interesting. At the same time, I did go to the grand opening of grand opening of the Goodwill bins in San Diego. And
was that like super wild?
It was interesting. So I couldn't get there right when it opened because I had to drop off my kid at school, and then I had to get over there. So it opened at 8:30, and you know, it's funny, the Latin pickers, they're texting me like, where are you? And I'm like, well, if I get there, do I have a spot? You know, because they got there early. And he's like, yeah, if you get over here, we'll help you out. So not that I would cut in line, but anyways, I didn't anyway. So I got over there and it was cool. I mean, it's in the middle of downtown San Diego. There was an underground parking, and luckily I got there. There was a huge line. So people had gotten there around 7 something in the morning, and the line was like super slow to get in. And so they're supposed to open at 8:30, and it wasn't until 8:45 a.m. when they started letting people in. I got there around 9, and there really wasn't a line anymore. And it was interesting. So there's an underground parking lot, and it's free, which is kind of cool because in downtown parking, you have to pay wherever you go. And I saw a car coming out, and the security guard's like, it's full. And I'm like, no. Actually, that car just left. And he's like, oh, you're good then. So I got in there. I just parked. And you walk in, and it's kind of nice. It's on the second floor. You get an elevator. You take the stairs. You show up, and I'm excited. I'm ready to go. I got my IKEA bags. Because whenever there's a new thrift store that opens, generally they push out all the really good items, right? Because they want people to come back over and over and over again. So I go in there, and I'm expecting the bins from what I see on YouTube. So years ago, I've talked about my experience at the bins over here in San Diego and San Isidro, how it was so crazy, how you had to get a raffle ticket. And then when you got a raffle ticket, they gave you a bin just to yourself, and you couldn't look at anybody else's bins until after a certain amount of time. And how there was kind of like families, like reselling families, like, you traded with people. You didn't go into this part of the bins. It was very fascinating. So I thought this would be new and improved. Like, it would be great. And if I had one word to define my experience there, was inefficient. It was very inefficient. So
which I think is super surprising for the bins, no matter where you are.
No. But let me tell you the difference. So if you watch bins on YouTube, and people let us know in the comments, and by the way, like this video and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, if you're watching on YouTube. If you watch on YouTube, generally people are lined up and they rotate the bins like every 10, 15 minutes, maybe every 30 minutes. And it's like brand new merchandise. Okay. And they have a whole section with clothing. They have a whole section with hard goods. They have a whole section with books. There's like tons of stuff from what I saw. Maybe your experience is different in Texas. Well, I go and like everybody's going whatever bin they want, which is fine. I'm okay with that. But like there's no rotation happening. I'm there for like 20, 25 minutes, 30 minutes. No rotation. Just the same bin. And there's maybe, I think, 20 bins in there. Okay. And probably 15 of them were clothing and another 5 were hard
How long
goods.
did you say you were there?
I was there for 2 hours. I stayed there from 9
rotate at all?
until 11. They rotated. No, they never rotated. So what they did is, this was wild to me. So they had one section that was like hard goods, I guess, that weren't for the bins, that were from the store, that they were just selling at the stickered price. Then they had a book section that was stickered price. Then they had a case that was stickered price. And then they had the bins, and the bins, it was like different pricing. It was like $2 for every pound of toys and $3 for every pound of whatever. It was interesting. And I see the Latin pickers there, when I got there, and they're leaving. They're like cashing out, and they bought one thing, and I'm like, you guys, aren't you going to stay around? They're like, no, because we sell books, and we came here for bins of books, and they said that they don't do the bins for books here. I was like, wow, that's not cool. So what they did with the bins is you wait there, and they tell you, hey, we're going to bring out stuff and put it in this bin. So what they expected was all the customers there to empty out the bin and put stuff from one bin to another bin. And then they came out and they dumped clothing onto a bin, or they came out with boxes of hard goods and they dumped it onto a bin. And they did that maybe 4 or 5 times in the 2 hours I was there. It was just, for lack of a better word, it was pathetic. I just don't, it's far worse than I had even seen years ago. And I know I'm being super harsh, but here's the deal. When you're going to do a grand opening, and people already know what to expect, like they've already seen it, right? It's not like bins are a secret. They're all over YouTube, right? This is a new facility. You've had how many years to figure out how to make this happen, right? You probably accrued inventory for this. You want to maximize. You want people to feel like it's worth their time. You don't want people to leave early. You want people to be there from morning till afternoon. waiting for the new bin to roll out, But that didn't happen. There's no point in sitting around and waiting, because you're just waiting that hopefully at some random time, some helper was going to show up with a cart of goods to throw in a bin. You were better off going to a regular Goodwill and waiting for them to bring out the carts. That you actually had a better shot than going to these bins. And I felt really bad for a lot of the clothing sellers, because they didn't. I mean, clothing should be pretty easy to rotate, and they didn't roll out new bins. They just, I guess we'll bring out some clothing here and we'll just kind of toss it. And what they did is they tossed it, and it was like a pack of hyenas, just like trying to grab whatever clothing. And once they grab all the clothing, that's it. And so now you're like, all right, well, hopefully they'll roll out another bin. It was a mess. Now, is that kind of what you experienced in Texas, or is it very different?
No, I mean, I'm wondering if it's kind of, location to location, every bin may be different, each Goodwill outlet. But yeah, ours is, I mean, I don't typically do the clothing aspect of it. I'm more hard goods while I'm there. But yeah, I mean, I'm usually not paying close enough attention to figure out exactly how they do the rotation, other than the fact that I know all of a sudden it's like, over here in this corner, I was over there like 5-10 minutes ago, and now there's no bins there, and people are starting to line up. So I'm going to get ready. I'm going to line up too. And then they'll bring out new bins. What they typically do is they just bring out the bins with like blankets over the top of them until they have all of the ones they are putting out. Usually it's about 4 bins at a time. And then people are kind of just lined up getting their spots. They pull the blankets all at the same time. And then, yeah, it's kind of that pack of hyenas thing. So I don't do the clothing aspect of it, because I have a few times sat and waited for them to bring out the bins. They put the 4 bins kind of together. People are surrounding it. But you really get like a little corner, because even if it's not a busy that day, even if there's only 20-30 people in there, everyone's there. Everyone wants to be when the new bins come out. So yeah, you really only have like one little like 3 foot by 3 foot section. Like basically your arm span is what you have to work with. And you're looking through your stuff, and then you're kind of just waiting now until the person next to me is done with their section, and we might like switch sides. And you're just kind of trying to get into the next open spot. And I don't know, like with as many clothing items that come in each one of those bins, and there's, 4 of them, they're usually stuck together, pushed together when they open them up like that. You're really not getting, I feel like you only see a little bit of it before everybody else gets everything, And so unless your little pile that is kind of right in front of you has the clothing you're looking for, and you don't know what it is either. Like when they pull it, it might be like, oh, I have the like ladies like pants, or I have the men's like shirts, or it's just a little combination of. I'm in a section. My corner of the bin is mostly just kids stuff, kids clothes. So I'm not a fan of that part of it. But yeah, I mean, I would say I don't know what the exact rotation like timing wise, because time goes, unless you're really paying attention. It goes pretty quick when you're in the bins. You're looking around at everything, and next thing you know, it's like, oh, they're bringing out some more bins. But it is hectic for sure. So I'm not sure why they did it the way they were doing it there, unless they were, I don't know. Hopefully that's not the way they normally do it.
I went to this dinner at this institution. It was kind of like a fundraising dinner, and I remember like they had speakers, and they were serving the meal. And for whatever reason, they didn't think about bringing out a big tray of like 20 pies to distribute amongst tables. Instead, the servers were bringing out 2 at a time. Right? So you're there, and it literally took an hour for you to get your pieces of the slice of the pie, and the whole thing was already done. Like the speakers had spoken, and not everybody got their food. And it's like, how simple would it have been to just use those trays and serve everybody quickly? And for whatever reason, they had space. I mean, they had a whole floor that was dedicated to this. And I think they had more of the floor for inventory than they had for the bins themselves. Like I'm talking about the back rooms where employees were sorting out stuff in that. And so I'm not really sure what's happened. I don't know if they're gonna fix that. I mean, did I walk away with some good items? Yeah, I bought a few baseball bats for $4 a piece. I'm probably gonna make $400 to $500 on those baseball bats. and a couple other items. So I still made out profitable, but those bats weren't even from the bins. They were in the corner. It's being sold with a sticker price that no one was looking at because everybody was focused on the bins. And I just picked up those bats and, I sold them. And I'm really, it was one of those things where I had these aspirations that I was gonna like source the bins twice a week, where I would go like, let's say a Wednesday and a Friday right after I drop off my kid from school, spend 2 or 3 hours, get a good amount of inventory, and maybe run a whatnot auction on what I got and quickly sell. And that's just not doable.
I mean, don't give up on it yet. It could just be they're working out the kinks. You got to remember too that Goodwill, one of the things that kind of is their method, their purpose is hiring people who maybe have difficulty finding jobs for whatever reason. And so it could just be a matter of their employees just weren't prepared for it. They weren't quite sure. And over the next several weeks, they'll kind of learn, okay, now here's how you do this. Here's how we're going to, you never know. I mean, you got to imagine it's going to get better.
All the employees were, they were fine. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, but even
like
still,
one of the top dogs of Goodwill were there. Like it just didn't make sense, man.
Which again,
they deserve every criticism they're getting right now.
Sure, and I'm not saying they didn't fail miserably, but you would imagine that if the top dogs of Goodwill are there, like you said, that they're not going to have some advice.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Okay, here's how.
You're right.
Okay,
you're right,
so
you're
this.
Right.
You guys were doing this today. Let's do this. Try this instead. We've had success in the Atlanta bins when we did this, and then we tried this in the Texas bins, and we've done this, and this is the best way to get inventory out, and here's how you should rotate. So it could just be that their grand opening, as it were. Maybe it's almost, I don't know if it was a grand opening, soft opening, what it was for them, but it could have been that they're trying to figure it out. And so yeah, you would imagine that it would be already experienced people kind of running the show. But maybe they wanted to pilot something else because that sounds unusual, the fact that they have so many things sticker priced. So maybe they're trying to pilot something new in San Diego to see if it works. And I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things I would say try it every couple weeks for a few months. Don't count on it, but you might go in and say like, oh, they've worked out the kinks and things are better now.
Yeah, no, I'll go back. I do have plans on going back. It just I probably would have been there a lot more had they been more efficient. And the last thing, I am starting Whatnot again. So Thursday, tomorrow, make sure to check out Pure Hustle Podcast. I believe I plan to go live at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. And I just 1 hour auction. I have a bunch of clothing I'm looking to sell. And so if you're interested in some vintage clothing or, just from all kinds of clothing, from Harley to Robert Graham to a bunch of sports stuff. Yeah, I'm just gonna pull out my totes and say, hey, let's go. So join us at 11 a.m. on Thursday. What is that? March 7th? Yes. No. Did I say 11 a.m.? 10 a.m. 10 a.m. March 7th on Whatnot. All right, what's going on with you? I've taken so much time.
Yeah. I mean, we're only 20 minutes in, man, and we've talked about the Goodwill bins for you. So nah, it's just messing. So yeah, I mean, things are going pretty good. I'm on spring break right now. And so like I mentioned on the last, like what I was looking forward to, I'm looking forward to like, this is going to release on Wednesday. And so tomorrow, Thursday, I'm hoping to hit up a few garage sales or estate sales because that is something that I've not been able to do. Thursday, Friday sales here seem to be pretty common, at least Friday sales for sure. And like I said, there are a lot of Thursday sales as well. And so when I do get to go to estate sales, they're often 50% off when I go on a Saturday, which is nice. But that also means everything's been picked through. So it's you're running that like, is it better to get 50% off of the leftovers and maybe you're lucky enough to find something that somebody missed? Or is it better to pay full price on the best of the best? And so there's a trade-off there, and I'm not sure, right? Like I can't say for sure because I haven't done very many Thursday estate sales. And so I'm going to give that a shot now that I'm on spring break, which is nice. And I've sold a few things. I have not been listing as much as I would like to because I've just been busy. I've had a lot of interesting things going on at work and some things I'm trying to work through there. And also, just house projects and we went traveling a little bit. But even with that, things are still selling. So I sold a old World War II holster. It was pretty cool.
Nice.
And then I also sold one of those pieces that came from that one of those estate sales I've talked about on the podcast with the ham radio. And that was an interesting one. I know we're not on random stories here, but I was getting some funny comments. I wonder if I could pull it up. Maybe before our random story, I'll pull up the actual comment. But somebody was basically like blasting me for my prices on it, saying how it should sell for less than that, and they sell for less than that all the time. And so I was like, oh, curious. Maybe I overpriced this. Maybe there's a whole bunch that are currently listed that at a much lower price than mine, and that's not the case. All of the ones that were listed, there's only like 3 or 4 of my unit listed. They were all priced around the same price as me, and plenty of sold at the price I was looking for. So yeah, maybe they were hoping that they could get it at that price. So I ignored it. I had a lot of things I could have said to their message, but instead of saying any of those things, I just blocked them because I don't want to deal with that kind of a buyer. And like I said, there's times where people can be really helpful. Like I've had people reach out to me and say, hey, you titled this wrong, or you have the wrong description in here, or, so there's nothing wrong with getting feedback, but anyways, that was a rough one. And then I had a couple of other people commenting and asking questions about, wiring and hookups and what's compatible with what, which, I'm not as experienced with, but that was a good sign that I was getting some movement on it, and it finally sold today, which was pretty exciting. So that was a big sell for me. I paid up for that. I think I ended up paying I want to say like $60, something like that. And I sold it for pretty close to $400 once you figure in shipping and all that. A little bit less than that. But I'd already broken even and more than made my money back already with the stuff I bought from there. So that's just all net profit at this point. So that was a good sell. And yeah, speaking of the outlets, I was planning on going out to the outlet today. Actually not too long before we got on the podcast here. I was like, I'm going to stop by. And my wife goes, take one of the kids. I don't care which one, take one of the kids. I can't do it. Right. And so I did. I picked the middle kid, because it's usually the oldest, right? Like usually when I'm going to a garage sale, I'm going to the thrift stores, I'm going to go do something, I tend to bring my oldest with me, but I'm like, you know what? I need to spread the love here. I'm going to take my middle kid. He's a little bit harder to deal with when I'm out and about, right? Like one of the beautiful things, when I think one of the reasons I tend to bring my oldest more often is it gets easier as the kids get older, right? Like there's a phase when they're really, really young. I remember I used to go to thrift stores a lot when my oldest was still in like his car carrier, and he was like on a feeding schedule with like his bottles and stuff. And so I could go to do a whole thrift store loop knowing I could just put him in the cart. He's still in his car seat. He's going to sleep the whole time. Right. And then, 8-10 months later, he's running around the store. And so it's like, oh my gosh, he doesn't want to sit in. He's touching everything. So any of our listeners who do this with a family, you know what it's like. You go through phases where it's like the kids are easy and then they get really tough. But it was fun taking my middle out, kind of seeing that he's getting to that age now, especially because I went to the outlet. My thing was hands in your pockets, don't touch anything, just because a lot of that stuff there can be maybe a little gross or I've dug in some bins before, and there's some sharp stuff in there in the hard goods section. So it's like, okay, hands in your pockets. And I did okay. I picked up a handful of things while I was there. Picked up a life vest. And the nice thing with that, like a life vest you would use if you're going, on a boat or you're doing like jet skiing or something like that. The nice thing with something like a life vest at the outlet is they are so light because they're basically just foam. It's almost like a piece of clothing. But you can actually sell them for a decent amount, especially if you get a good brand. So I picked up that plus an old vintage wooden toy. But it was kind of cool to take my son and do that with him. And to see that like he's getting to that point now. I probably couldn't do more than an hour before he loses his mind. But watching my kids get older, kind of seeing them excited to go to thrift stores. And of course, one of the deals is I typically get them something small, find some little toy or something for them. But I'll tell you what, one of the things I noticed, and I might be killing my market here. I don't even think it's a big market, but when I'm at the outlets, because it's pay by the pound, I've never found like complete Lego sets while I'm there. Like whether it's in box or like big toys, but there's a lot of times where there's just like pieces of Legos like put together, like part of a car or part of something. And it's like maybe 20 to 30 Lego pieces together. But because you're paying by the pound and because they round it, like to the nearest, you could easily, like when you fill up your bag full of stuff, throw in, if you can find a couple handfuls of Legos, those in, and it's not going to add anything to the price. Like you might end up paying like an extra 50 cents every so often because you added a handful of Legos into your bag. But over the course of months of going in, every so often you're getting a handful of Legos. That's almost like, I'm almost thinking of like a little bonus, because then when you've got like a 5-pound thing worth of Legos that you've kind of collected over the course of several times going, that you barely had to pay anything, if any. Like honestly, with what I paid for today, for instance, I probably could have thrown a couple handfuls of Legos in and it wouldn't have changed my price. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, and it does.
It's like, this is, I'm only at 1 pound. And so then when I get close to 2 pounds, I'm going to get charged for 2 pounds, whether or not it's like 1.5 pounds or it's 2 pounds.
Yeah.
And so half a pound of Legos is quite a bit of Lego. And so you can kind of get a bunch for free. And over time, because I don't think anybody's thinking like, oh, I'm going to get these 30 Lego pieces. Like this is worth my time and money. But if you're always doing that every time you go, before you know, it's like collecting change in one of those big 5-gallon water jugs in your room. My mom had one growing up.
As long as it's moving, as long as you don't have, 30 gallon jugs in your room of Legos, So
do you have that many Legos?
No.
They move, right? They're still moving. I mean, I haven't sold Legos in a while.
They move. I would say, I guess I kind of got tired of doing the whole by the pound kind of deal. You know what I mean? Like it just gets, it's not as simple as things that you don't have to like, because when you take the pictures, you have to put it on and they have to space it out. You have to take several pictures. You have to weigh it. You have to seal the. I mean, it's not that bad. I guess I'm just being lazy. I just kind of don't care for Lego. Let's put it that way. Unless it's like minifigures or something like that. But yeah, there's a.
Please. I'm sorry. I was gonna say, please forgive me, everybody. I know I probably said Legos multiple times.
Oh yeah.
I know.
How dare you?
I know. Lego is the plural of Lego. So when you find Lego, you can get as much Lego as you want.
So, all right. Well, hey, I mean, it's so interesting how we have different experiences. I'm just glad we didn't go to the bins to make content. Like if you and I showed up and we're like, oh, we're going to make a YouTube video grand opening, because there were some creators there and you weren't allowed to shoot video, by the way. You had to get permission from Goodwill. And I met one of them there, Tice Baby. What's going on? And he had his GoPro and everything. And I was just thinking like, what kind of content did you make? Because there was not much content to be made there. Hey, real quick, before we move on to random stories, because I do have one that Mike was kind of like, hey, I don't think you should share that, but I'm gonna share it anyways.
Oh no!
Know what story? But
don't do it. Don't do it. You're gonna don't do it, Orlando.
I don't. Whatever. What do I got to lose? Okay. So, my Reseller Genie. That's not the content I shouldn't be sharing. My Reseller Genie is a great bookkeeping service created by resellers. And if you haven't had a chance yet to use my Reseller Genie, we are right now having a contest. We're going to announce next week February's winner. We just announced January's winner for a free month of my Reseller Genie. All you have to do to get entered is just comment on our video. And so if you haven't, had the opportunity, there's 2 ways you can enter, but chance of you winning, I mean, they're pretty good. Odds are good, or you can just jump into my Reseller Genie right now, get 15% off the first month by using our code Pure Hustle. And you'll have an easy way to import all your eBay fees and your shipping. And then you can put in your cost of goods and get a P&L report and all those things that you need from my Reseller Genie. I actually had to apply for different things. I'm trying to move some money around. And so, applying for loans and so on. And it's been nice to use my Reseller Genie to get that profit and loss data to be able to show, hey, this is how much I made, this is how much I lost. This is where my business is going. And so if you haven't used my Reseller Genie, definitely encourage you to do so. Again, go to the link below and use our code Pure Hustle to get 15% off the first month. All right. So my random story. So I've always said, Mike's kind of cringing here because it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine, Mike. So I've always said sharing a reseller is the best thing to do. Like you will always score, like you'll get the best deals, but it actually worked against me this time. So let me tell this story. So I saw a lot of vintage toys lately. And sometimes when you pick up vintage toys, you're actually, for whatever reason, they're vintage toys that are handed down from one family member to the next family member. And sometimes you end up in a place where you are, I mentioned this a couple podcasts ago, you're actually negotiating with a kid on accident. Like, you don't know that, right? So I went on a local marketplace and, I had contacted, said, hey, I'm willing to buy this. Would you do this price? And they texted me and said, let me give you a call. Now, the text was an adult texting. Okay. It wasn't a kid, the way the language was and everything. So I call in and there's some random kid answering. I had mentioned this in the previous podcast. And my son looks over at me in the car and he's like, Dad, are you like trying to haggle like a little kid? I'm like, I don't know. Maybe this is some adult that talks like he's a child. I don't know. But, I had mentioned to him, I said, hey, is this for your collection? And he kind of, the awkward pause when you ask a kid too many questions and they don't answer you because they don't know what you're saying. Like, I think that's what happened. So, because I wanted to know if it was his collection, because if it's his collection and he doesn't want to part with it, I'm not gonna, like, I'll pay a little bit more for it. That's my weakness, right? Because I have kids and I want my kids to do well, and so eventually we agreed on a price. And then I said, hey, let me message you tomorrow and set up a time. So I texted, and obviously the text was like, we are out of town for the week. We have a family vacation. We'll be back on Saturday, and then you can come by, to make the purchase. And I'm like, okay, this is obviously they had the kid answer the phone, but it's an adult texting me. And so I waited the week, and it's a Saturday. And, while we were talking on that, on the previous phone call, I had mentioned that I'm a reseller and that I need to buy at a certain price for me to be profitable, which I always do. And 99% of the time it works. Well, I had texted and I said, hey, by the way, I know it's been a week. I know you guys were out of town. I can stop by in a few hours. I can pick this up. And crickets. No one gets back to me. Nothing. I'm like, what? This is kind of weird. So the next day I messaged, I'm like, hey, just following up, what's going on? And then they said, well, just to let you know, we decided to sell these items to another person that was buying this for their family. And, we decided to go with them because we didn't want to sell to a reseller. And I was like, what? Like that hurts my soul. Like you made an assumption that I don't have children. I don't have kids. I'm trying to pay bills. I don't have kids that I got to feed. Like, you just assumed that I was just some random, single reseller that was trying to haggle some deal out of you. And so I shouldn't have sent the text, but I sent the text. I wrote it and I let it sit. And then I'm like, no, I need to let them know that they lied to me. So I messaged back. I'm like, hey, you know what? I appreciate you letting me know, except you went back on your word and you made an assumption about me that I don't have a family, that I don't have kids, that, I don't do this for a living. And you chose another family over my own family. And that's kind of bothersome. And that's not okay. And let us know in the comments, was Orlando crazy for texting back this, for even going this far?
Yeah, I think you are, mostly for this. I think I don't necessarily. I'm not
really bothered. We agreed on a deal.
Yeah, so that was the part you were upset about, right? Like, so the part about like they went another way because you're a reseller, like that bothered me too. That is an element of the story, but you're upset because when push comes to shoves, they told you could come by on Saturday or whatever and make this purchase, and then when you tried to contact them back, they said they went another route for selling it, right? Like, so you feel like they backed out of the deal. That was what was upset you.
Actually, no. I'll be real with you. I would have honored more if they said, hey, listen, somebody came in full price and they decided to pay full price and we had to go with it. I would have accepted that, because to me, it's the human element. It's like, okay, you're taking out of it. You didn't make any assumptions out of me. It's just a business, right? Like the Godfather says, it's just business. I'm okay with that. So they messaged me back and they said, well, the what actually happened is they paid us a better price, and we felt that price was fairer than the offer that we gave you. And so when they said that to me, I was like, all right, there's no need for me to text back. Obviously to them, it wasn't about my family. It wasn't about I was a reseller. It was just business. It just, they found an opportunity to make more money. And the way they made more money is by promising somebody something, lying about it, going back on it, and getting more money. And that's how business works sometimes. And that's what happened. So
I guess where I'm at on it is like, I just feel, yeah, you might have been wronged in it. They might have, gone back on their word. And, I certainly
they
understand.
might have. No, they did. They lied.
Now, see, that's where I feel like you're taking it too personally. So, like, look, I agree that as resellers, we often get, we get stereotyped as these, just money hungry people who aren't doing what we're doing for a reason. And I've given my fair share of like, hey, like I need to resell because I need to pay these bills for my family too. Like, it's like I have reasons for needing these random pair of jeans just as much as somebody who needs the jeans, right? So somebody's reason isn't necessarily better than mine. So I agree with you on that. But I think the part of like they went a different route. They did make more money for going a different route. And I think it read to me less of, hey, we just didn't want to sell to you because you're a reseller, but like we made this price to you because you're a reseller, but we found like a grandma who wanted it and they paid us more. So like we went that route. And to me, it's like, it's frustrating when somebody goes a different route like that.
That sounds like situational ethics. That doesn't sound like integrity to me.
But either way, it doesn't matter. Like your message back to them didn't change the situation. Like I think
no, it
to
didn't.
me, it's
I
like,
felt better about it though after.
Did you? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like to me, it just seems like kind of like petty and weak. Like just to be like, well, you know what? And like to try and get the final words in. It almost just would be better to be like, okay, thank you. And then just let it go. Like, I don't know. Like it just seems like it's not worth like always. And not that you always do, but like, I know you want to get yours and like, I want to like stick it to them, but it doesn't really help the situation at all. And, you probably upset them and now they're upset about it and you're upset. Everybody's upset about it. And it's
good. I hope they lost sleep over it.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. Like I would be upset too, but to be fair, there have been plenty of times where, somebody's trying to buy something local deal with me and somebody's like, maybe I even agree to a price. I got $100 under what I was hoping to take. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll meet you on Saturday. And then somebody else comes in full price. I don't have cash in hand. There's been too many times I've been burnt anyways. Like until I have cash in hand, until like the deal has been made and the transaction, like nothing's final. I usually tell people that too. Like, I mean, typically not like, hey, like you better get here, but I'll tell them it's like, as long as I haven't sold it before you're here, like,
yeah, if they told me that, I'd be okay with it.
But I just say
if they said, hey, if somebody offers us more money, we'll go down that road, I would have been okay with it. I actually probably would have said, you know what, I'll just pay you full price. I probably would have. But,
yeah, I get it.
I just think about, it's funny because our reseller topics kind of delves into this a little bit too. It's a fascinating one. So stay tuned for that one.
I just don't recommend getting too personal and stuff like that.
No, I agree with you. With you. Should I have sent the text? Maybe. Maybe not. Don't know. All right. You have any random stories, Mike?
No. You didn't just send the text. You sent the text and now you're talking about it to the world.
I am because I'm sure I'm not the first person that's been burned by people like this, because I got to tell you, it's so funny how resellers get judged all the time when this is how business functions, right? Yep. You go to Walmart, they are resellers. They bought an item at a lower price, right? And that's what they do. You go and you go to service, right? You buy food from somewhere, they bought at a lower price, right? So to me, that's not where the issue is. The issue in reselling is when people lack integrity. And that's what happened here. A family chose money over integrity. And that's what bothers me.
Yeah. And you're probably right. Like maybe, or I mean, it could go either way on that. You're probably right. I'm not disagreeing with you that was messed up, that they sold it to somebody else, potentially because you're a reseller and they thought like this grandma who was getting it for their kid had a better reason. But that aside, I guess just to me, like if I were to say like, hey, I don't recommend people sending those kind of messages. I don't recommend people even getting
I agree
about
with you.
it. So that
don't be like
that's
Orlando.
where I'm at on this.
That's fine.
We
can do that PSA.
It just feels like it's the same thing. Like when you see people, like they get in a breakup, with somebody over something, and it's like they're going on that now like weeks later and they're still texting each other like, well, you did this. And it's kind of like at a certain point, like you kind of just go, okay, Like, thank you. I appreciate it. Peace. And you kind of just take that higher ground. And yeah, you can complain about it later. Like, I mean, I have no problem. Like, you telling the story, me telling the story. Like, we tell those stories all the time of like, can you believe they did that? But I just feel like the getting your own and like messaging them back, it's just like, it's not worth it. Like, it just, to me, it just feels like, but I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm too hardcore about that.
Or if Orlando just needs to grow up or something. I don't know. Let me know. All right. You got any random stories, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, not a huge one. So I was at the outlets today, and I found a cash register, and I've sold a couple of like cash register type things before. And this one was like pretty interesting. Like, seemed kind of cool. Looked it up. They seem like they go for anywhere from $200 to $250. The nicer ones, like if there's more like closer to new, like $300. But pretty consistently they were selling at that price, at least $200. And but this one didn't have a key, and so I'm like digging through the bins where it was at. Like maybe a key fell out, like 'cause there's two places for the key to go. Well, I don't find any key. And I see that you can buy keys for this register online for like $25. So I'm like, okay, well, buy the register, I can get the key, and then I could sell it. Now that's another step. And then I'm like, okay, well, that's an option. Let me test it. I plugged it in. It started, it turned on. I was able to push the buttons, the cash thing open, but I have no way of testing all the features because I didn't have printer paper that like goes in it, right? And then one of the things that makes this valuable is like whether or not it's got ink left for the printer or whatever. It's the ink roll. And so I'm like, well, then I'd have to buy a key, and then I'd have to buy an ink or printer paper that fits this machine to test it. And then what if I go through all that and it doesn't work? What if I go through all of that and I'm able now to sell this for $200, and maybe I only paid $5 for it, but I've also paid $25 for a key plus shipping, and I had to wait, and I had to pay like, probably $5 to $10 for printer paper, because you usually can't just get like one little roll. You're probably buying it in like a chunk of them, and I'm never going to need the other one. So yeah, I could sell that with it, but like my price and time commitment for this item just keeps going up. And I had to do the cost benefit analysis of, okay, I already don't love selling electronics. This is profitable. I'm probably going to pay $5 for this if I buy it here. I could sell it maybe in its current condition with no key, no untested, all of that, and maybe sell it for $75. But then it's also kind of big, and I got to ship it. And what if they get it and they don't? So it was one of those things where I just had to walk away from it. I probably could have picked it up. I probably still could have been profitable, but I had to like know myself, know the amount of work I was going to have to pour into it in order to get the top dollar out of it. And the question is, am I actually going to do any of that? And probably not, because like behind me, I have a whole bunch of electronics I still need to list. So
yeah.
And by the way, the reason I don't have the normal background up is I saw when I got set up here for our recording program that there's a current bug with the new iteration of Google Chrome. And it does not allow virtual backgrounds, but they're getting it fixed according to our StreamYard platform. So we will see. Maybe next time we'll have the background.
All right. We need to get to some reseller topics. So let's just roll into reseller topics.
All right. Let me pull up that.
While Mike is pulling it up, real quick, if you have not jumped onto Patreon to help support the podcast, encourage you to do so. It's only $5.55 a month, and one of the bonuses to that is being able to get into the Discord, which allows you to join a thriving community of resellers. We recently got a message from someone telling us how much they enjoyed being on Discord, how they appreciated how there's just all kinds of different resellers there and the knowledge that they're gaining. And so if you haven't yet, help us out. Go to the link below, patreon.com/peersofpodcast. And for $5.55 a month, you can help support us. All right. Are we ready for some reseller topics?
Oh, we're ready. The eBay Q4 earning report, the canceled Zelda eBay sale, and too many views and watchers and no sales means high price. All this and more on Reseller News.
All right. So Q4 earnings are here. And got to tell you, I wasn't surprised. I was trying to find like the perfect meme like to post on social, and I couldn't find it. So if anybody has a great meme, or Mike, if you can think of one, let me know. But eBay came in with better results than they anticipated. But here's the thing. You have to remember that they already said that Q4 that their estimates were going to be lower. So they had lower goals and they went above those goals. And I'm like, oh, yay. Like that's kind of like saying, hey, I plan on, just scoring 4 points tonight. And if I score 6, like that's a win. Okay. And so that's kind of what happened. Now they did do better. So if you look at the Q4 highlights, they're still losing buyers. But their revenue actually was up. And remember, their focus has been for the last year on they're not really concerned about the one-time buyer. They instead are looking for what they call enthusiast buyers, right? And these enthusiast buyers are people that spend, I think it's like close to $3,000 a year, and they buy multiple items, and they want to hook those people in, right? They're not worried about the one person that is like, hey, I want that Jurassic Park shirt from the 90s that I had when the movie came out. They're not looking for that one-time buyer. Now, they do want to create that one-time buyer to become somebody that's like, you know what? I also want to buy some Jurassic Park books. And actually, at the same time, I enjoyed, the movie Heat that came out around that same time. And I want to get some of that memorabilia. So that has been their focus. And so they actually did well. They were aiming for 18.3 billion in GMV. That's gross merchandise value. That's how much they make off of just reselling. And they hit 18.6 billion, which is higher than in previous years. Actually, Q4 2022, they made 18.2 billion. And this last one, they made 18.6 billion. So, I mean, that's an uptick. To me, it's kind of flat. It's not like a huge win. Now, I'm going to ask you, and you're going to know the answer here. Where do you think they made more money again?
Off of the sellers.
Yeah. And so if you go to promoted listings, their revenue jumped by 3% from quarter to quarter. And actually, let me give you perspective. Last Q4, let's take a look at the numbers. They were at, I'm trying to get the numbers here. So they went up 3%, okay, from last quarter. So they keep going up in their revenue. And they've actually been speaking a lot, and I wish we had the time, but if you look at the earnings report, they are very happy about their pay-per-click. So Jamie Ione, the CEO, in the earnings call was discussing how they saw a lot of revenue on pay-per-click. So I'm guessing a lot of this money, I'm hoping, is not coming from people that sell secondary goods. It's coming from those people that sell newer items, right? Because that's who it's worth it for them to do pay-per-click, right? Because if you're a secondary seller, like, I mean, unless you have a really hot item that's like, let's say, retail arbitrage or something that's trending, pay-per-click isn't really to your advantage because you're paying for people to click through your item, but unless it's a hot item, you're not going to have a lot of conversion. You may have people click here and there, but they're not going to buy. And so that's pretty much it. There wasn't much on the earnings call. Jamie only did talk about AI and how they're very happy with the magical description. Somebody on the call said, well, do you have a metric to know, how successful this is leading to sales? And his answer, I'm just summing it up, you can look this up online, was basically, well, we survey the people that use it and they're happy with how the magic AI listing is going. And I'm like, well, that didn't answer the question. The question was, is it leading to conversion of more sales? And so they don't have any metrics for that. I am not a big supporter of the magic AI listing. And when it comes to the description, I do think it's great if it's able to fill in your item specifics. But when it comes to the description, it's too wordy. I think it gets in the way of a sale. Because usually when people are buying things, they know what they want. Like they look at the pictures. They don't care about the history of an item for the most part. They're not, asking for the details. They don't want your description to go, this looks great on any, entertainment system. Add this to your collection. Like the AI magical descriptions do some of that. So that's pretty much it. They had talked about AI, but it wasn't like super profound. I do think, again, they're going to continue moving in promoted listings. I'm going to give my own conspiracy theory. I think what's allowing promoted listings why promoted listings is being pushed is because it's allowing eBay to continue keeping shareholders happy because it continues to provide revenue. And on top of that, if there's a flood of resellers and the market is down, this allows for, the algorithm can now redistribute sales. And so it allows eBay to continue making money from sellers. So that's my Q4 earnings report. I know that wasn't super in depth, but there wasn't really a ton to share. You got anything you want to put in here?
No, that sounds good.
All right. Okay, this next story I find very fascinating on many fronts. Okay, so we only have so many reseller topics. Today was just more Mike and I talking about what's going on in our own reselling. So this is from CNBC. Title is 22-year-old found a Holy Grail Zelda game at home, and it might sell for over $700,000. It's really kind of a miracle. Okay, so a sealed copy of 1987's The Legend of Zelda, which sold more than 6 million copies and spawned one of the most iconic video game franchises of all time, will be hitting the auction block this week. And I already know how much it sold, so I'll share that in a little bit. The seller, a 22-year-old from California, goes by Cairo, and did not want us to use his full name. They purchased this at their parents purchased this back in 1987 at a store called Fedco. I don't remember Fedco, but that was 1987 for $29.87. Okay, so about $80 in today's money. So this individual, Kiro, had sold stuff online before, or Cairo, and so listed on eBay, and within minutes, okay, so listed this for $17,000. I guess it's one of the first production Zeldas or something was special about it. He had little knowledge. Listed it for $17,000, and it's sold within minutes. Now, Mike, where do you think the next line is going to go from here?
You cut out there. So were you asking where I think this is going to go?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously it's going to sell for more than 17,000. So I'm interested. One of two things would happen. One, he realizes he undersold it. So he could cancel the sell, right? Which I don't think you could technically do or shouldn't do. But the other thing is, wouldn't it be great? And maybe I'm totally off because I didn't read this story. But did the person not pay 17?
Okay. So what happened is he sold it for 17, and right, according to eBay policy, he should have grabbed that game, wrapped it, packaged it nicely, and shipped it out.
Well, when they pay, did the buyer pay?
Yeah, the buyer paid.
Okay.
And but instead he canceled it. And which is kind of odd to me because like this is, eBay all the time tells you can't do this. I think about my railroad lantern that I sold for $500 that I could have sold for several thousand. I kept my word and I shipped it out. Well, he put up the listing one night, right? It sold really fast and it sold. So quoting the individual, I was like, yo, this is wild. There's no way I just sold it that fast. A few minutes after that, another offer came in. He was soon fielding bids from a number of eager buyers. Multiple people were messaging me on eBay right away. He says one guy offered to drive down to where I was and give me $30,000 cash. He quickly canceled the sale and took down his listing, realizing that he probably had something special in his hands. That same night, he receives a message from a collector who asked him if he'd be open to a phone call. The collector explained that Kiro's copy of Zelda was an extremely rare unit from the game's very first production run. The fact that the item was sealed, making it a holy grail. And the last one of these that sold for $705,000. So long story short, it goes to Heritage Auctions and he sells it on Heritage Auctions and it sells for $288,000. So a couple
for
things
how much?
Here. $288,000.
$280,000. So now here's the question, Orlando. Would you cancel?
I will now.
Wait. But the integrity.
Well, that's what I mean. This is why I think this relates. Because, see, with my railroad lantern, I was like, I can't cancel this. eBay doesn't like this, blah, blah, blah.
Not the eBay lantern.
I know.
But what about the toys you were going to get from that kid and they sold it to the grandma instead?
I know.
See, you would do the same thing.
I know. This is my dilemma. I'm being honest here. I have a dilemma here. I'm more bothered by the fact that, what's eBay going to do anyways?
Cancel his account?
I guess, but
who cares?
I don't care. $288,000 later, cancel my account.
Yeah, I'll start a new one.
Yeah. Who cares? But I got to tell you, eBay needs to be more lenient on this stuff. Like
you think they need to be more lenient?
They are. Listen, if you cancel because of out of stock or whatever, like it's like
you get the hit. Yeah.
Yeah,
and
right?
that makes
and
sense.
But it's also interesting because I've called people on eBay and I've said, hey, there's this guy that they bought it, but I don't feel comfortable shipping it out, and they're like, oh, you go ahead, you can cancel it, that's fine. So I do think there needs to be something to be said because I don't know, but good for Cairo. I mean, that's pretty awesome. It is a testimony to how the video game market is down, right? Where one sold 2-3 years ago for $750K and his sold for, or I don't know, I think it's him, sold for $288,000. So,
wow.
Anyways, that's just crazy. I mean, stuff that I bought as a kid, it's wild, man. It's wild.
Wow.
I had the first edition. Like, I bought it right when it came out in 1987. So, oh well, it is what it is. So you're saying it's all good that he canceled. It's not a big deal.
I don't know. I haven't thought about it enough to make that claim. I probably would have. I mean, everything else aside, like if you could tell me like, hey, you could have $17,000, or you could realize you sold this too much. Maybe you ruin your entire eBay account, but you're going to be able to make 288. Like, yeah, I'm probably going to take the 288, right? Like, so the point I guess I'm trying to make is like earlier on, like when you were upset with the person who sold it, like I feel like in any situation we'd all be willing to do that. Now, like if you'd already made the sell, he'd already shipped it out, the person bought it, like I'm not going to go back and like collect it, right? But it's hard because then again, if you're the buyer, yeah, it sucks for the buyer because. And it's tough because I don't know if there's an easy answer to this. I think this situation
is worse than mine because it's sold. You know what I'm saying? Like the transaction actually happened. It's on paper.
Yeah. That's what would stink. Like, I mean, like think about like all the times like you do like eBay auctions, right? And like it's like be like, oh yes, I was able to get this at such a good price. And if they realize like, oh, well, never mind, you got it at too good of a price, I'm not selling it after all. Like it is a contract, but contracts get broken all the time. And so maybe there's some kind of, I mean, who knows? Like maybe there's a like some kind of a penalty for something like that. Because I know we talked in the past on a reseller news of like somebody getting sued because they canceled a sale, and the person who bought it originally was able to sue, and I don't know how much they were able to get. Obviously not the whole value of the item, but what if the person who bought it for 17, like they knew that they were getting a crazy good deal. They were undercutting, right? So it's not like they're this innocent party. In this, they were doing the thing, like they were trying to get a good deal, and unfortunately they got screwed on it.
When you say they weren't like an innocent party, why were they not an innocent party?
I mean, I'm not saying they did anything wrong, but at the same time, it's not like if I bought something from a store and then they canceled the order after I paid for it, like, hey, why is that on me? Like that happened to me one time. Like we ordered a dresser from this company, and then they refused to ship it, and we'd already paid for it, and like we had to call, and it took like a week of us calling them, and they're like, oh, we realized that item was on sale and it wasn't supposed to be on sale. And I was like, well, I don't care, like I bought it. Like that in that instance, like I was just buying a product. But like if you're going to a garage sale and you're about ready to buy a holographic Charizard Pokemon card from somebody, and they don't know what it's worth, and they're selling it to you for $1, and then somebody comes up and is like, actually, like you could probably sell that for a lot more. Like that would suck. But it wasn't like you were like coming in like as a collector to a collector. Like that's a different thing. Like it's two collectors like making a deal together versus like, hey, you're coming in trying to like as a reseller scoop this up on a crazy good deal, and then now you're going to sell it to a collector, which there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, that's what I mean. So listen, I just want to keep things interesting, okay? But here's the deal. Remember when we bought all those shoes from Reebok? Like there was a price glitch. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like I bought like 100 pairs or something.
And so in a situation like that, I would say we were not innocent parties. Like in an instant like that, yeah, because like they messed up, their system messed up. We were trying to take advantage of that, right? So when it comes down to it, it wasn't like we were just. But
isn't it just normal business?
Sure, it's business, and again, I'm not saying that we're like a guilty party, but it's not like we're just like we didn't know, right? Like it's like you knew, which is why you bought 100 pairs, right? Like, so it's like they messed up. You were trying to take advantage of it. It didn't work. So, but it's not just like you were like an everyday person who was like, oh, I'm gonna buy this item, and oh, why did it get canceled? I don't understand. This is so weird. It's like
so. This is why I said eBay should be more lenient on things. Like, what if there's a situation where I pick up something and it's I've had this happen multiple times where I bought something, I didn't know the value. Somebody else bought it, and later I find out that it sold for so much or whatever. And
because if it became common knowledge, or if it became common practice for people to be able to sell things on auction or sell things on buy it now prices, and if there was a decent chance that the seller was going to cancel the order if they thought they sold it too low, people aren't going to buy on eBay, because it's like, why buy stuff? I buy, I pay. And if there's a 20% chance that seller is going to cancel anyways, I'm not going on eBay. That crashes eBay. So I'm fine with them being strict with it.
That's fair.
And then there's going to be exceptions. Like, there's always going to be exceptions, but the exception shouldn't be the rule,
Okay. I just
that's where I land on it. Like,
I'm
glad
I
eBay.
see your point.
Yeah, because that's what keeps buyers willing to come. Like, because would you buy on eBay?
No.
Like, let's say, for instance, Whatnot. Like, would you use Whatnot to buy things if you knew that there was a pretty good chance that most of the stuff, or half the stuff, or some of the stuff you bought on Whatnot was never going to make it, and you were just going to get refunds, and you spent hours on there buying things and bidding, and you'd be like, I'm not using this platform. This sucks.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's funny because the story is fascinating on the one end of what the individual had and the story of how it sold. But on the other end, it's like, okay, I can't, it's kind of odd because this is really frowned upon on eBay. And, eBay also lost money, right? Because they would have made 17,000, they would have made the profit on the fees of 17,000, and instead it went to heritage auctions.
No.
So I wonder if eBay is bothered by this.
Yeah. I don't know.
So, anyways, all right. Let's do some
bolos.
bolos.
Let's jump into our bolos. All right. Since I already talked about life jackets, I figure, unfortunately, this isn't one of the ones I picked up, but I was doing a little bit of research on life jackets when I picked mine up, and it can be a bolo if you're out searching. Specifically, the brand is Lotus. If you can find yourself a old Lotus, I think they're Lotus Designs, I think is the actual name of the company. So if you can find yourself an old Lotus Designs life jacket. So the thing is, Lotus Design life jackets originally it was its own company. Patagonia bought them out like a while ago. I want to say like 10 years ago, maybe longer than that. So once they bought them out, they had a short run where they were still making products under that Lotus name. And then for whatever reason, Patagonia, Lotus, they just stopped making them. So there's a whole bunch of people who like had these life jackets. They were like almost like designer, really nice life jackets. But they just, you can't get them anymore. They're out of print, or not print's not the right word, but they're out of production. So now the person who started Lotus, that company, he ended up making another company called Astral. So those actually do well too. So Lotuses, you're probably going to be able to get, even on a used Lotus life jacket, close to 100 or over 100 on it. The Atlas ones, you're probably looking, or not Atlas, Astral, you're probably looking at closer to 40 or 50. But even still, like, I mean, if you're just at a garage sale and there's random like stuff around, those are the kinds of things you see. Like I've found mini life jackets. And so just look at it, and you never know. If you see that Lotus Designs, you definitely have money.
There you go. That's not a bad bolo. I mean, that's one I didn't think about. So the thing is, man, there's so much out there to pick up and think about. So I'm thinking about vintage magazines. Now, I want people to be careful about vintage magazines. Okay. And the reason I say that is, you can pick up Life magazines, Time magazines. There's not a lot of money in those. But what I find is like late 80s, 90s. So I've picked up BMX, skateboarding, Nintendo Power, any of those magazines. There's definitely money to be there. So keep an eye. Don't disregard. Sports Illustrated for Kids is another vintage magazines. So anything like late 80s and 90s that's kind of like was cool and trendy. Don't think of like National Geographic or Time Life. Think about like the trendy stuff. There's money to be made there. All right. Hey, before we move on, just real quick, Whatnot. We haven't talked about this. I'm going on Whatnot tomorrow. And if you want to get a free $15, use the link below. And then when you use the link below, you'll get a free $15 credit for your first purchase. So don't, go to the auction without any money. If you just want to get something for under $15 for free, use the link below and sign up via our link. All right, Mike, what are you looking forward to here?
Yeah, like I mentioned at the beginning, I'm hoping to get to some Thursday, Friday estate sales this week and see have a good comparison on where the money really is. What about you?
So I'm looking forward to, it's been really great lately because local auctions, has been kind of been my go-between right now, as I'm waiting for garage sales, and I like going to the thrift store, but it's kind of like I feel like it's a lot of if you're full time, I find it's really hard to go to thrift stores daily. But auctions is kind of like making money while you sleep. Like you just go online and then you find items you want to buy and you just wait. And so I've been doing okay with some local auctions too, and some live ones, and so looking forward to that. And then if I haven't talked about this in this episode, but I'm still dealing with the issues of flooding. And so my floors are finally getting redone. And so I'm looking forward to reorganizing everything and getting back to normal, because right now I've been living in a hoarder's house. My one son's room has inventory. My other son's room has stuff. My room has stuff, because I had to move everything out of multiple rooms. And so it'll be nice to get back to normal. And I'm looking forward to garage sales, being that I haven't been able to go to any good garage sales in about a couple months. So that's pretty much it. So, hey, everyone, thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate as many of you continue to, stick with us here, hearing the ups and downs, getting important information that you didn't know, or maybe just, remembering things that you had forgotten about, or just letting us just share, our reselling journey with all of you. Grateful for everyone. And with that being said, make sure to be real,
be relevant,
and be reselling. Peace.